Well, hello there, ladies and gents. I'm Tammy Sipnewski, and you are watching Clear Cryptos. And like all of my other videos, this is not financial advice. This is just what I think and how I'm going to play this out. So, picture it's the year 2030, and you're checking the chart on your phone to see that Bitcoin is worth over $1 million. Just put yourself in that space for a second. It's 2030 and Bitcoin is worth over $1 million. Now imagine that the 2030 version of yourself is able to slip a letter to the 2022 version of yourself. What might that letter read? It might read something like, "You fool, why aren't you using all of your disposable income and buying Bitcoin? You don't need to be going to Starbucks a few times a day. You should be buying Bitcoin. Don't pick up the bar tab for your girlfriend. You should be buying Bitcoin. You don't need that new purse. Bitcoin," you get the message, right? Whatever money you have that's disposable income. I'm not talking about your bill money or money that you need to keep yourself afloat. I'm talking about money that you can afford to put into Bitcoin. You should be putting into Bitcoin. That's what I would be telling myself, because I do believe that the potential is there, that it's going to be over $1 million. Now, look at it here. I mean, it's sitting at under $20,000 right now. How amazing is that? That we can buy something here, and just in a few short years, 8 years away, it has the potential of being worth over $1 million. And why do I believe that? Well, because people who, and I'm not ashamed to say it, are way smarter than me, believe this very same thing. People like Michael Saylor, people like Cathie Wood, who is the CEO of ARK Invest. This woman saw the potential of a lot of great companies very early on. Companies like Tesla, Netflix, Zoom. She made all of these calls very early, and she was able to make a lot of money because of her calls. Anything that she deems as disruptive innovation, she thinks that that is ultimately the future. And right now, disruptive innovation, the technologies they carve out about $8 trillion in today's market value. She puts that in the year 2030 at 200 trillion. Anything that's these disruptive innovation, anything that interrupts the current world order, that's going to be sitting at $200 trillion. And of course, blockchain is one of them, and that's Bitcoin. And she even has a more rosier outlook than me. She's putting Bitcoin in the year 2030 at $1.3 million. So that's absolutely amazing. Imagine it's you a couple of centuries ago, and you have an opportunity very early on to invest into those disruptive innovations like automobiles, telephone, electricity. That's the potential that we have right now with cryptocurrency and blockchain, and in particular, Bitcoin. Right? That's the big one. It's always the biggest one. If ever you're looking at coin market cap, Bitcoin is always number one and Ethereum is always number two. So what am I doing preparing myself for this 2030 price line of over $1 million? Of course, stacking sats. And that's what's known as stacking Satoshis. And there's 100 million Satoshis in a Bitcoin, just so you know. You should be buying little pieces of Bitcoin every single week, religiously every single week, like I do. Okay, now depending on how much money you can afford to buy, that's what you should be buying. But I also have some capital allocated, just sitting off to the side, little allocation, just in case we run into what's known as a black swan event. This is when a lot of Bitcoin, or could happen. We're not definitely for sure that this is going to happen, but just in case it does happen, a lot of Bitcoin will hit the market all at once and will start bringing down the price. Now, some people who are, not really savvy investors will see this sudden price decrease. They'll freak out and they'll start selling off their Bitcoin, which will cause an even further dip in the price of Bitcoin. And some people believe, we could even get as low as $11,000 for Bitcoin. So I've got some money parked off to the side in case an event like that happens. Like, you have the potential of possibly scooping up a whole Bitcoin at that price, or a quarter of a Bitcoin, or maybe if you can only afford a tenth of a Bitcoin, that's still a huge opportunity. Because if I believe Bitcoin is going to be $1 million in 2030, and you can only afford to buy one tenth of a Bitcoin, that's over $100,000 that you will have gotten from a $1,000 investment. Where else do you see that kind of potential, that kind of return in your investment? I don't think that there's going to be anything other than cryptocurrency in that avenue for us. If it's something that we can only afford to buy 25 bucks a week or 50 bucks a week, we're if you're not already a millionaire, this is the kind of investment that you have to settle into making, right? Like, probably the majority of people don't have that much disposable income. The economy is very bad right now. Inflation is incredibly high. Things are very expensive to buy right now. Simple household goods, gasoline. People don't have that much disposable income. So maybe if that's just what you can afford, that 25 or 50 bucks a week worth of Bitcoin, I think you need to consider doing that. Really sit down and consider, okay, what do I think, what do I believe the potential of the price of Bitcoin is going to be at that 2030 mark? Because if I believe it's going to be at $1 million, that's where I'm putting my money now. I'm going to start skipping on Starbucks runs and fancy dinners out and maybe new things that I don't necessarily need, but I just sort of want. I'm going to put my wants into a different column, like maybe retiring way early is now my biggest want. What is your want? What would $1 million Bitcoin do for you if you knew about it now? Consider that conversation with your 2030 self. Well, that's going to do it here for me today. And I thank you so much for joining me. And I will catch you next time on Clear Cryptos. Take care.